Far out in the endless blue of the Pacific Ocean lies a speck of land that has captured the imagination of historians, travelers, and dreamers for centuries, Easter Island. Known to its native people as Rapa Nui, it is one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth, a world apart from the continents, surrounded by thousands of miles of water in every direction. Yet, in this isolation stands one of humanity's most mysterious legacies, the Moai statues, monolithic stone figures gazing silently toward the horizon. For generations, the world believed these statues were just giant heads, silent witnesses to a lost civilization. But the truth unearthed beneath their stony faces tells a far deeper and more astonishing story. What archaeologists discovered beneath Easter Island's surface would completely rewrite history, and reveal the brilliance of a people far more advanced than the world ever imagined. For decades, photographs in textbooks and travel magazines showed only the massive heads of the Moai jutting from the grassy slopes of Easter Island. They seemed like simple stone sentinels, enigmatic but inert, their purpose long forgotten. But some archaeologists suspected there was more buried beneath the earth, hidden by centuries of wind and soil. In 2010, a team of researchers known as the Easter Island Statue Project set out to uncover the truth. Led by Dr. Joe and Van Tilburg, they began carefully excavating around several of the island's famous statues. What they found stunned the world. Beneath the ground, these so-called heads were revealed to be full-bodied figures, complete from head to torso to folded arms. Some extended over 30 feet underground, preserved in perfect condition. It turned out that time itself had been the island's greatest sculptor. Over centuries, wind-blown soil and volcanic ash buried the Moai up to their necks, concealing their true grandeur. As the archaeologists brushed away layers of earth, they uncovered intricate carvings on the statues' backs, spirals, crescents, and geometric patterns that spoke of a lost symbolic language. These weren't random decorations, they were sacred designs that told stories of ancestry, the divine, and the bond between people and the land. The revelation was breathtaking. The Moai were not merely heads but towering figures that embodied both the spiritual and political heart of Rapa Nui civilization. Another long-held belief was that the statues faced the ocean as protectors against outside forces. But excavations proved the opposite. Each Moai faced inland, toward the villages and the people. They weren't guarding the island from the sea, they were watching over the living. Their gaze was one of protection, not defense. Every statue stood atop a ceremonial stone platform known as an ahu. These platforms weren't randomly placed. Each had a deliberate orientation, aligning with ancestral lands or celestial positions. The island itself was designed like a sacred map, a living landscape of memory and meaning. The people of Rapa Nui had created not just monuments but a massive, open-air temple that unified their community and connected the living with the spirits of their ancestors. This realization overturned centuries of misconception. Far from being primitive or isolated, the builders of Easter Island had a profound understanding of architecture, astronomy, and spiritual design. Excavations revealed another secret. Many statues once wore great red stone cylinders atop their heads, known as pukeo. These were carved from a special type of red volcanic rock found miles away and symbolized the topknots worn by high-ranking chiefs. The color red was sacred, it represented mana, the life force and spiritual power that flowed through leaders and ancestors. Transporting these massive stones across the island was no simple feat. Each pukeo weighed several tons, and yet the islanders managed to move them from distant quarries and hoist them atop the towering Moai with astonishing precision. This was not the work of a struggling people, it was the achievement of engineers and artists who combined art, faith, and ingenuity into a single cultural masterpiece. Archaeologists even found ancient chisels, stone picks, and hammers lying exactly where the workers had left them centuries ago, as if the builders had suddenly stepped away and never returned. These tools became silent testimonies to the island's once thriving society, a civilization that lived, worked, and dreamed in the shadow of its ancestors. In 2011, while excavating near the ancient quarry of Rongorongo, researchers made another astonishing discovery. Hidden in small stone-lined pits were bright red powders, carefully stored pigments made from ground iron oxide such as hematite. At first, scientists thought it was volcanic dust, but chemical analysis revealed it was red paint. This pigment was used in ceremonies, body art, and to adorn the Moai themselves. Imagine it, centuries ago, these statues did not stand in dull gray stone. They glowed in vivid crimson hues beneath the sun, their color symbolizing divine authority and sacred power. The red paint was a physical manifestation of mana, energy, life, and connection with the divine. Even after ecological hardship and deforestation, the people of Rapa Nui continued to produce and preserve these pigments. Their art and rituals endured, defying the myth of collapse that once defined their history. The discovery forced scholars to re-evaluate their assumptions. Far from fading into ruin, Rapa Nui society had adapted, persisted, and sustained its spiritual traditions far longer than anyone had believed. Excavations beneath the Moai's Ahu platforms revealed yet another layer of mystery. Hidden burial chambers were discovered beneath the very bases of the statues. These were not crude graves but precisely engineered stone vaults, built without mortar yet so tightly fitted that not even a knife blade could slip between the stones. Inside lay the remains of chieftains, priests, and artisans, those who had designed and built the Moai. They were buried with offerings of obsidian tools, jewelry made from distant shells, and intricate wooden carvings. The diversity of materials suggested trade across far-flung islands of the Pacific, proving Rapa Nui was not an isolated world, but part of a vast Polynesian network of exploration and exchange. Traces of red pigment were also found in these tombs, hinting that both the living and the dead were painted during funerary rituals. Death, for the Rapa Nui, was not an end. It was a transformation, a passage from the physical world to the realm of the ancestors. Perhaps the most haunting discovery of all came decades earlier, in 1978, when archaeologist Sergio Rao studied fragments of white coral found scattered near Moai platforms. He realized these were not random pieces, they were once the statue's eyes. Each eye was crafted from white coral with dark pupils made of obsidian or red volcanic rock. When these eyes were placed into the statue's sockets, the Moai transformed from silent monoliths into living presences. Their gaze became powerful, almost human. During ceremonies, the rising sun would strike their coral eyes, causing them to gleam and shimmer across the landscape. To those who stood before them, it must have felt as though the ancestors were truly watching. Only the most sacred statues received eyes, likely during rituals that marked their completion. When the eyes were inserted, the Moai was said to be imbued with mana. It could see, protect, and connect the living to the spiritual world. This final act gave each statue its soul, making it a guardian not of stone, but of spirit. Modern restorations that have replaced replica coral eyes into Moai have recreated this chilling effect. The statues seem to awaken, their gaze direct and unyielding. It's easy to understand why ancient islanders believed these figures were alive. In 1864, long before these modern excavations, a French missionary named Eugene Hérode stumbled upon wooden tablets carved with strange symbols. The islanders called them Rongorongo, meaning to chant or to recite. Unlike anything else in Polynesia, the symbols followed an intricate pattern, written in alternating directions in a system known as boustrophedon. Scholars were astonished, no other culture in the Pacific had developed writing. The glyphs depicted birds, fish, plants, and human forms arranged with mathematical rhythm. Each tablet seemed to tell a story, though the language itself remains undeciphered to this day. Only a handful of elders could still read the script by the time Europeans arrived, and much of the knowledge was lost after colonization and disease. The existence of Rongorongo shattered academic assumptions. Easter Island was not merely an isolated tribal culture, it was a literate society with complex systems of record-keeping, ritual, and perhaps astronomy. The written word, long thought to belong only to great civilizations like Egypt or Mesopotamia, had also found a home on this tiny volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific. Each discovery, the buried bodies, the red pigments, the sacred tombs, the glowing eyes, the lost tablets, painted a radically different portrait of Easter Island. This was not a civilization that collapsed in ignorance or isolation. It was one that thrived through faith, intelligence, and cooperation. The Moai were more than monuments, they were embodiments of connection. They symbolized how the living honored the dead, how art became faith, and how memory took physical form in stone. Every chisel mark, every symbol, every painted line was a declaration: we are here. We endure. Today, as archaeologists continue to dig beneath Easter Island's volcanic soil, new revelations still surface. Each one reminds us that the island's true story is not about mystery or tragedy, but about human brilliance. The people of Rapa Nui carved their history into stone so it could never be forgotten. And though centuries of wind and time have buried much of it, the Moai still stand, watching, waiting, and whispering the stories of those who came before.